The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg.
Here.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Ryan.
Here.
Alderman Vollmer.
Present.
Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderwoman Sanye.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys.
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
President Green.
Present.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderwoman Spencer. 12 present. You have quorum.
A quorum being present will be led in opening reflection and prayer by Reverend Steve Lawler with Eden Theological Seminary. You would like to come up?
Good morning. Please join me for a moment of silence before prayer. Gracious and Holy One, we are mindful this day of those who have served the common good through their service in our nation's armed services. We think of our sisters and brothers, mothers and fathers, cousins, children, neighbors, and some of us here in this chamber. And we give thanks that they said yes to service for the common good. May we each commit to their service by honoring it and supporting liberty, justice, and dignity for all people. Fill us with the courage they showed in their service, that we will sign up, show up, and deliver on our promises. Give those gathered here the spirit of service to care for those who are unhoused, hungry, hopeless, and crushed by systems of injustice. We gather as your hands, your heads, your hearts, your feet, for your work in the city of St. Louis. In all things, animate us with the strength of those we honor today. To these things, let us all say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderwoman from the 13th.
My honored guests today are the veterans that are in my family and in our country that are continuously fighting to protect us in this city, in this country. And I want to tell them thank you very much, because you don't have to do this. And so we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Any further introduction of honored guests? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, November 3rd, 2023.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we approve the minutes from Friday, November 3rd, 2023.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we approve the minutes from Friday, November 3rd, 2023. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A.
Apologies for those technical difficulties. Madam Clerk, if you could please go back to the beginning of first reading of board bills and take it from there.
Board Bill 158, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, an ordinance prohibiting the issuance or transferring any package or drink liquor license for any currently unlicensed premises within the boundaries of the 12th Ward Liquor Control District, as established herein for a period of 4 years from effective date hereof, containing an exception allowing during the moratorium period for the transfer of existing licenses only under certain circumstances listed below, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 159, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, pursuant to ordinance number 70333, as amended by ordinance number 71394, and ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic on various blocks in the First Ward. Board Bill 160, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance to regulate employer and employee working relationships between St. Louis and all employees under the classified service, including compensation plan, terms and conditions of employment, benefits, leaves of absence, and authorization for a deferred compensation plan, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, amended Section 2 and Section, 2C and Section 2D of the Ordinance 71686, and including an emergency clause. The provisions of the section containing this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor. That's the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to Committee of Board Bills.
To the Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bill 158. To Public Infrastructure, Board Bill 159. And to Budget and Public Employee, Board Bill 160. That's the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading report of standing committees.
The following board bill was reported out of HUD's committee with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 157, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard and Alderwoman Sanye, a board bill recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the City of St. Louis through its Community Development Administration to enter into and execute an agreement to accept the Environmental Protection Agency funds awarded pursuant to fiscal year 2023 Brownsfield grant competition in the amount of $500,000 containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 153, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel at Clarence from Natural Bridge to Lexington as bounded by Natural Bridge, Clarence, Lexington, and Newstead in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with the Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter, and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. That's the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
Report of special committees.
We have none.
We may dispense with line item 15, board bills for perfection consent.
Board Bill 140, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in City Block 938 as bounded by Delmore, 21st Street, Lucas, and 22nd Street, beginning at 22nd Street and extending east to a point in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described, in accordance with the Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter, and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 142, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in the triangular-shaped excessive portion of the right-of-way at the southeast corner of 11th Street and Lucas Avenue, abutting City Block 178, same being bounded by Lucas, 10th Street, Washington, and 11th Street in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with the Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter, and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 139, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, and Alderwoman Sanye, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, wherein the Board of Aldermen authorizes the acceptance and receipt of funds awarded by the State of Missouri for year-round paid jobs, internships, and paid training for youth residing in the City of St. Louis, appropriates such funds to the extent award to the St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment for the purposes of the grant, authorizes the Director of the St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment to make, negotiate, and execute any and all contracts and documents on behalf of the City of St. Louis needed to expend such funds and contain an emergency clause. That is the extent of board bills for perfection consent calendar.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the board bills for perfection
It's been
calendar.
moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th, that we adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 93, Committee Sub as amended, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge and Alderwoman Sanye, an ordinance amending ordinance number 71430, requiring member orientation and member training for the COB and DFOB allowance for independent legal counsel with certain provisions and requiring specific entities to appear before the COB or DFOB only when their presence could potentially interfere with criminal or civil proceedings and contain an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 93 committee substitute as amended.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to move to perfect Board Bill 93 committee as.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we perfect Board Bill number 93 committee substitute as amended. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to move to adopt floor substitute for Board Bill 93.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we adopt floor substitute for committee Board Bill number 93. Seeing any objections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So Board Bill floor substitute 93 has been through several changes. What we're doing in this legislation is honestly doing a lot of cleanup from prior legislation that which was originally passed from Alderman Vaccaro as well as Alderwoman Clark Hubbard when it comes to the oversight board for our detention facility oversight and COB. The reason of trying to clean this up is there was some clear conflicting provisions in board bill or in Alderman Vaccaro's board bill that set up detention facility, the DFOB, and then Alderwoman Clark Hubbard passed the board bill that set up DFOB and COB. So we struck out and we repealed Alderman Vaccaro's bill because at some point you was going to two different pieces of legislation to try to figure out exactly what was the language when it comes to the detention facility oversight as well as the COB. There was different requirements for members as they continue to feel like that they were hitting milestone success in this legislation. The language in the bills were not very clear on what necessarily the role of DFOB members was or COB members. So this is already existing legislation that we took the time to clean up. I've met over the last several months with DFOB members to hear their concerns of how they feel getting stonewalled to actually be able to do their job as an oversight. I made sure I've tied in the mayor's office to also get input on what seems to be the problem, why DFOB members are not getting the necessary access to either the facilities or roadblocks with getting input from the legal counsel, our city attorney. I've also worked with my colleagues on the Public Safety Committee to sit down with them to also tie them in, as well as the former Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, who passed this legislation to make sure we did it right. So the floor substitute, I'm going to go over a few changes that are in floor substitute to, again, just do some cleanup language. So in Section 2 of the bill, we're allowing for the board to accept anonymous complaints regarding corrections officers. We were very careful in this language because we do know that there's a state law that was passed, the Police Bill of Rights in Jefferson City. With talking to the city councilor, we had made sure that if we put in this anonymous complaint, that it wouldn't violate state law. Since our correctional officers are not under law enforcement, we were able to put in this anonymous complaint where if a correctional officer feel like there's wrongdoing at the jails, that they'll be able to put a complaint into the DFOB board without revealing themselves for potential retaliation. Section 3 is probably the biggest one. This is one of the issues that we heard with DFOB members from the very start, is that they felt like when they was trying to get input from our city councilor, that there's being stonewalled. So what we did in working with the mayor's office and the city councilor and DFOB members, we established a special counsel and external special counsel. So the internal special counsel provides the board with their own designated attorney just within the city of St. Louis councilor's office, who is not authorized to share any information with other colleagues related to the oversight board. The external counsel with this provision also allows for the request to be made for external legal counsel. The city council will have 30 days to issue a decision if a DFOB member asks for a legal opinion. If that decision is not met within 30 days, the DFOB board will have the ability to work with the commissioner of DFOB to seek outside counsel to get input on things that they may feel like the city councilor have a difference of opinion on if they do not get the opinion. Section 8 is it talks about the COB and DFOB. My computer had froze up. That's why Alderwoman always say it's probably good to have paper. The COB and DFOB member, the commissioner investigators, what we did is we established access to information. So right now, DFOB members and COB or DFOB members and the investigators will have the ability to not just get information if there is an issue going on in the jail, but they'll also be able to get access to detainees in the detention facility. Also in Section 8, we put that all members must sign a confidentiality agreement, understanding that these DFOB members and COB, but we're mainly talking about DFOB, and we only changed DFOB because the COB hasn't been set up for a while, that they must sign a confidentiality agreement because they are receiving a lot of documents from inmates and people in jails that can be problematic if that information is released. So we put in there very clearly, while it is kind of a practice for the DFOB to already sign a confidentiality agreement, we wanted to put that language in there very clearly that they must sign it because this is sensitive information that they're dealing with. In Section 11, this was actually in the old bill, but it was a cleanup. It said that the age requirement to serve on this board was 16. So we changed that from 16 to 18 for a person to serve, understanding that probably a 16-year-old young adult shouldn't be serving on this board, as they probably need to be paying attention to their education. In Section 13, currently the way the board is set up, if they want to remove somebody from the board, if they're not completing their training, the process right now is it is up to the current board members to remove each other. So after talking with some of my colleagues and talking with people on the DFOB board, we removed that language that DFOB members have the right to remove themselves, and we put it in the power to remove a DFOB member up to the mayor or the public safety committee. So right now, the way that DFOB members are appointed on the committee, the mayor gets so many appointees, the Board of Aldermen gets so many appointees. Those appointees from the Board of Aldermen come through public safety. So we would not just have the ability to appoint these individuals, but if somebody is not necessarily doing their training, or if somebody is holding up the board from progress, that the Public Safety Committee would be able to remove a member from the board if they're not following their training. Training was probably one of the biggest things that has been a back and forth between the DFOB board and the jail commissioner or the mayor's office. So in the old language, it said that they had to do training, but there was never any set hours on what the training looked like. There was never any actual requirements of what the training they had to do. So we spelled it out again very clearly that they have to complete 25 hours of training, that working with Nicole Barton, who has been working with the DFOB and has served on a lot of these oversight boards nationally, said that 25 hours is, for at least DFOB, is a good amount of time for them to be able to do 25 hours and not exceeding that, so that they could be able to get access within the jail or do their work, and that training must be completed within 4 months, so that they're not continuing to get stonewalled or feel like the goalpost is being moved, that they constantly have to do more and more and more training. We did put a provision in there that says, understanding that it's important to make sure that the information that they learn is continued to be kind of in their head and that they don't forget about it. So there is a provision in there that allows ongoing training, but that ongoing training does not stop the ability for DFOB members to actually continue to do their access, to be able to work with investigators, to receive complaints, to be able to go into the jails, to investigate any wrongdoing that has happened in the jails. But they'll still have to work with the department and the commissioner once the city eventually hire a commissioner to do ongoing training. Those are a lot of, or honestly, those are all the changes in the bill. And again, the point of doing Board Bill 93 was to just clean up a lot of the language that already existed that was, in some cases, conflicting because there was two ordinances out there, or wasn't clear on what the role of a DFOB member is on this oversight board, or wasn't clear what the investigator role was. So we wanted to do some cleanup on this piece of legislation to ensure that oversight is actually happening. It has been almost over a year and a half, and these members still haven't been able to fully be able to do their role. We've lost a jail commissioner in the process of it. We're at a spot where most of the members are now trained up, but understanding we currently have roughly about 5 members who are serving on unexpired terms. And this Board of Aldermen, as well as the mayor's office, will have to soon reappoint those. So we wanted to ensure not just current members that serve on the board, but also new members that will be coming to, or that will want to serve on this board, had a very clear ordinance of what their role is, what their responsibility is, and not continue to run into roadblocks that we've kind of seen over the last year and a half, especially also seeing a lot of unfortunate situations that have happened at the jail. There's been multiple deaths. There's been several riots, and this board is important to not just do the work, but it's important to the city of St. Louis that we have oversight to be able to change and correct some of the wrongdoings at the jail. Unfortunately, some of the language in the previous 2 ordinance wasn't clear on the access for these individuals to be able to do their job. And with that, Madam President, I open up for any questions.
Alderman, do you want to first make a motion to perfect? And
Oh, sorry.
interrupt you. You seem like you were on a roll. So.
I think I was just rolling there. I would like to move to perfect Board Bill 93 floor substitute.
Okay, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we perfect Board Bill 93 floor substitute. Alderman from the 4th. I'll go first.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just want to commend the Alderman from the 14th on his work on this. He got together with basically everyone that this legislation touches. He did a really good job with the cleanup, as he noted, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderman from the 5th.
I just wanted to know if the Alderman from the 14th, I kind of missed that. Could you start all over again?
Absolutely. So this piece of legislation.
Objection.
Point of order.
All right, Alderman from the 5th, was that it? Okay, just checking there. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, would like to be added as a sponsor.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. If you would please add me as a co-sponsor as well. Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 6th.
I would also like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderwoman from the 13th.
Would the sponsor answer a question, please?
Alderman from the 14th, would you yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 13th?
Yes, I yield.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
So who on the Civilian Oversight Board did you all talk to?
Who on the oversight board that we talked to?
Right, because in this bill, it says DFOB and COB. So who with COB did you talk to? I heard who you talked to with DFOB, but who did you talk to with the Civilian Oversight Board?
And that's a good question. I appreciate you asking that, Alderwoman. So going back again, so when Alderman Vaccaro set up the original legislation, he just set up legislation around setting up the DFOB board. Then Alderwoman Clark Hubbard did legislation that set up the detention facility oversight that housed not just DFOB and COB. So in this legislation, we didn't touch any COB because currently the COB board hasn't met almost within a year. So we didn't want to make changes to that board without being able to talk with them. They're not active right now. Hopefully, once they get back active, if there are roadblocks that they're running into, that we'll be able to address that. But we was hearing from the chairman, from DFOB, members like Ms. Walker, members like Mike Milton, that there was issues in the ordinance that was set up by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard that was kind of stopping them from doing their role. So we didn't want to touch COB because that board isn't active, and we didn't want to make changes to their board with potentially doing more hurt than good to making sure that any potential roadblocks that they may have would either further those roadblocks. So there's not an active board right now for the members on COB to communicate with them.
So I guess my question, and maybe this is the wrong question, because in the bill you have COB, and that's why I was asking, and you're not doing anything with COB, so why would you just leave COB out and just have DFOB?
If we took COB out, we would be getting rid of the civilian oversight board. So in the, like I say, in the legislation that was passed last session, includes COB and DFOB and house them under one department. So if we just took them out, then we would be eliminating the COB. But what we didn't do is we didn't change any requirements for a COB. Right now, the way that I say the current legislation is written, you have both of them being mentioned in it because they're now housed under one division. I think maybe in the future that could be a conversation of maybe doing just one COB bill and one DFOB bill, but they are kind of conjoined already because that was what this Board of Aldermen passed last session.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to commend Alderman Aldridge for his work on this. I also got to be a part of several of the meetings and several of the conversations because I really wanted to learn a lot more about what had happened and the history of it, and also commend Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, who was also in those meetings and really was a great point to kind of give myself and Alderman Aldridge a lot of the history and things that took place. And then also in regards to Alderwoman Boyd's question, Nicole Barton was the previous commissioner for the COB board, and she was a lot of like our main point of contact who we talked to and was a part of the work for creating the bill.
And she left, went back.
Alderwoman, you
can
has to be your
respond,
turn to speak.
Please? Yeah, could I respond?
Alderwoman from the 7th, are you done with your? Okay, Alderwoman from the 13th.
And so she left, went to Ferguson, and then she came back. So technically, he couldn't say that we couldn't.
Alderwoman, are you trying to inquire of the Alderwoman from the 7th?
No, I'm just responding to what she was saying. Technically, I don't think we should look at that for information because she's technically not a part of that. And that's all I was asking. That's why I was asking to sponsor that. I knew that they had referred to her. That's all I was asking.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, if the Alderman from the 14th would yield.
I yield.
And from the 14th, yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 12th.
Absolutely.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you. We've been dealing with different forms of this. You talk about Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, but the first time we started dealing with this was in the 90s, probably before you were born, with Alderman Kennedy, is who, when I came aboard, was working on that, and that was in the 91, 92. And that's the first bill I voted for and the last one, because then I started to learn more about it and had lots of problems. I just heard you say earlier that you talked with the mayor about why there was such a hard time of getting information when members tried to get information. Could you enlighten us why there was such a hard time to get information?
Thank you for that question. So in talking with the mayor's office and talking with the way I want to move forward with this piece of legislation, I want to make sure I hear from everybody. So I didn't just hear from DFOB members saying we're not getting access and just one side. I want to also hear from the mayor's office of why some of these concerns were being brought up. In those conversations, some of that access they were not getting is because the training hasn't been completed from DFOB members, is what that office said. And the truth is that a lot of that training wasn't complete. And a lot of members would say that they completed the amount of hours, but it wasn't clear because it wasn't clear in the legislation of what training was necessary or how many hours they were supposed to complete it. Majority of the members at this point has now got to a place where they have completed it. I would say with a year, there was some back and forth with the former commissioner who represented the board and the mayor's administration that I think also held up a lot of DFOB being able to do their work. But it ultimately came down to why they wasn't getting that information is due to training.
So you're telling me that, so the mayor's office or whoever was holding, maybe not the mayor's office, whoever was holding up the information, they challenged the members as saying that they were not qualified to get the information because they had not completed training. Is that correct?
Training was not complete.
And who was the determinant of if training was complete or not? Was it the mayor's office?
It would have been in relationship with the former commissioner and the mayor's office and the communication. Since the previous commissioner has left, Nicole Barden, who has kind of stepped in, has worked with the DFOB members to now get the ones who want to complete the training to a place where majority of the board is doing the training and now completing it.
And so there were specific things you had to do to train, or were there was there some gray area of what you were able to do to train?
I would say the legislation had a lot of gray area, and that's why we cleaned it up. It didn't have amount of hours of training that was necessary. It didn't have what training could, what they needed to complete. So a lot of members started to get upset and started to push back and say we're not doing training because we don't even know where the goalpost is. We don't know if the training is labor laws. We don't know if the training is a detention facility oversight training, which Ms. Abdullah, who's the commissioner of the jail, said that's like a 16-hour training. We've been able to talk with Nicole to figure out like what is really the meat that they need to get out of that, where we've broke that 16-hour training down to be able to incorporate into the whole 25-hour training with the other trainings. But to your question, it wasn't clear on what training was necessary, let alone how many hours of training they needed to do to be able to get access to information or access to the jail.
And who was doing the training?
Well, right now, Nicole Barden is facilitating the training.
Yes, now, but who was doing the training in which the mayor's office or whoever else didn't want to give information could determine that wasn't enough training? Who was there somebody appointed to do the training? Could people just go get their own training? How did that process?
I believe that the board and the commissioner will work with the mayor's office to figure out what training was necessary to be able to streamline that. And in that process, some relationships was between the commissioner and the mayor's office was probably strained. Became strained, and then the training stopped. And since the previous commissioners left, Nicole has kind of fixed a lot of those roadblocks. Ms. Barden, I shouldn't say Nicole, Ms. Barden.
So you just hit on one of the reasons I haven't voted for this for a lot of years. When you are really having an independent commission and you let the mayor appoint and they keep control of a lot of things, budget strings and stuff, you don't really have an independent commission. And if you go onto I haven't been on Facebook for a couple of years now, but it's all posted, all the things of what was wrong with, starting with when you let the mayor appoint, then it's not really it's that mayor's commission. And they can do all kind of things to interfere with you. So that's why I'm not going to support your legislation. Everything has gotten closer to it, but just what you said, that the mayor can just feel disappointed or strained, and then who does that budget? Who puts that budget together? That's the mayor's office, okay? So there are some other commissions out there that are independent. They get elected or they're separate, And that's much more what I would like to see, because you wouldn't have had all of that. And I've made a record of that for years, saying this is not the way to go. And you just pointed out just what I'm talking about would happen.
If I could, can I jump in on it?
Sure.
Yeah, I will say, though, now with this new language, it gives more power to DFOB members to say, we have to do X, Y, and Z training. We have 25 hours that we must complete, and it must be done in 4 months. So if there is a holdup, there is now safeguards in place to make sure that it is not being stonewalled, and that they actually know what their requirement is, and how many hours that they actually have to do the training, compared to the previous legislation that was not kind of clear on that. So we are making it very clear on what the training is so that they can get access to do their job.
Make no mistake, they've gotten better. It's just haven't got to the point of my support. Budget is another thing. Think about that. If somebody strains me, if I'm the mayor and you've made me disappointed, I don't like what you're doing, guess who writes the budget? You should know that by now. It's the mayor's office, okay? Only way the mayor doesn't do it, if she doesn't do it or he doesn't do it in time, then the Paul Payne budget director can submit his budget. But the thing of it is, that's still that when you control the purse strings, that's still a part of the commission that's not independent. So I have, as it has gotten better, I went from a no to a present, which is what will be my vote today. I also want to point out that I see a lot of times you say mandatory, this shall happen, this shall happen. And I wrote them several times throughout your legislation. Well, if that doesn't happen and somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, then how do you force them to do it? Because if you don't have some kind of a punishment or something to make them do it, so okay, it's mandatory that I'm supposed to turn in a report, just to give you that as an example. Under the charter, all divisions are supposed to turn in a report to the mayor's office and the board of aldermen. I can't remember the last time I got those reports, only if I go looking for them. They just don't do them. They used to do them all the time when I first got here in the 90s. But after the Slay administration, they disappeared, and it's real hard to get them. So I would suggest to you that if there's nothing that says this shall happen or that shall happen, something that they won't do it. And then what are you going to do about it? The other thing that I had a question about, and I thought it had gone to court, when you look at page 37 of 53, it might be in your original bill, I didn't look at your floor substitute. It talks about 2 members, 2 COB shall consist of 9 members of the public nominated by the mayor. I'm sorry, it's on line 8, and is that the one where?
What page?
Page 37 of 53, I think it is. I'm sorry, 47 of 53. That's what it is. You got line 7, age 16 to 24 for membership. And I thought that there was a court case, or the police took that to court about them being under the age of 18. And I thought that we had to come back and rule that they had to be over 18. So did you ever run into anything about that? Because we
correct that in the floor substitute. We changed it to the age of 18.
Okay, but
that was one of the changes in the old legislation. It had 16, which that wasn't on my doing, but we fixed that to make it to 18.
Okay, like I said, I didn't look at your floor substitute, so I was just looking at that, but I knew that was one of the things that I think the police officers had won in court, or the court said we couldn't do that. So you all are working really hard at this. As long as people control your purse strings and your nominations, there will always be somebody who doesn't like what they're saying and don't want to hear it. And that happens to be the mayor. They still have too much power over this commission for me. I want a truly independent commission in which, if you're going to investigate and stand for people's rights and fight for people's rights, you have to be able to not have somebody block you. I'm like representing being an attorney, when I was a public defender, but if the circuit attorney could say we couldn't get certain information, that wouldn't be a good public defender, okay? So I could subpoena on my own. I didn't have to wait for somebody to say, oh, I'm not going to sign your subpoena. So that has been the problem for me as a lawyer, is that we don't quite go far enough with this. It's getting that way. But anytime we don't have a mandatory budget or some way to make sure that the budget is funded, And we have mayors still being, and it's not one particular mayor, it's mayors in general. If I was the mayor, that's still not a good thing that I would be able to appoint somebody who really would be investigating people I put into place. People start to get very parochial and want to protect their people, and really they're protecting that they made that appointment. And so they don't want to say I did something wrong or that it wasn't the right fit. And so they hold on to it. And we've seen that happen, okay, recently. And there was one I wanted to, it's a lot of hard work, I see. Keep getting forward, you keep working on it. But until people, I wanted to ask about the young person who, one of the members of one of the boards went to the police, went over to the Justice Center and then was refused. Is that addressed in any way in this bill? I didn't see it, and if it is.
Yeah, so one thing that wasn't also defined in the legislation of what members' role are as DFOB. So there's DFOB members, but within the division, you also have investigators. So the investigators are the one who can go in the jail, receive the complaints, and they bring it back to the DFOB to be able to figure out what is going on with that complaint. We've not just defined roles, but we also ensure that DFOB members have access to be able to go in jails with the investigators. They will have to, they can't just do like a pop-up, because I do think, you don't, not saying any members on the board currently is, but you wouldn't want a member just being upset and going rogue and say, I just want to show up to the jail at 11 p.m. at night or at 3 a.m. in the morning. Not saying that would happen, but that they would have to at least still provide some type of communication with the warden saying, hey, we would like to go into the jails. Also being able to do that once their amount of training is complete, because going into the jails isn't, you want to have some level of training, especially when you're dealing with detainees and you're dealing with people who may even have litigation against the city and why they in the jails, and put not just the DFOB members at risk, but also the detainees that are in there. But we've cleared it up and defined that they do have access to be able to go in and what their role is, and being able to ensure that they can work with the investigators who receive the complaint to be able to follow up on those complaints, to be able to access the facility when they need to upon a written request, that they just can't enter freely and willy and nilly.
And so what you're saying is there can be no surprise inspections by these people. Is that it? Yes.
Kind of.
Yes. Okay. So, and that's one of the other things I don't like. So when I was a public defender, fighting a good fight, I could go see my clients. And that was one of the tools that I used, that I could go see my clients. And I would show up and want to see my clients at all different kind of times. Okay. So, if they have told me something was going on or they got it to me, then I showed up, and they didn't have time to necessarily smooth things out. I'm not going to use the word cover up. I'm just going to keep it to myself and think it out loud. Okay. Mm-hmm. They would not be able to cover things up and quiet things down. Part of the reason of having independent investigators is so that they can go and see. Mm-hmm. I have always been opposed to closing the workhouse because I was the chair of public safety when we built it. I know the history by it. We didn't build the Criminal Justice Center for long-term holding, and found out we even had different locks for long-term holding versus short-term. We built it for a number of reasons, and so we've had to readjust that building. I still don't think it's a good building, and wish we wouldn't have closed the workhouse because there's no place for the people to go outside and work out. It's just a lot of reasons that I thought it was a mistake, and it remains a mistake to me. But we do have it now, and people are in close quarters all the time, and to me that makes for people to be irritated, to be able to
that's why and I agree with you. I think that's why I wouldn't say I agree with the closing of the workhouse, but I do understand that at our CJC there is no outside space for individuals, and right now they're being held in these facilities for, I think when some of us did a pop-up on Public Safety Committee, myself, Alderman Orion, Alderwoman Sonia Velasquez, we went over there without letting them know. And, we heard from inmates of how they've been in there for, 8 hours of a day and probably get 1 hour outright. They're not getting their medicine on time. They're not getting their clothes washed. So when we see, these type of riots that are breaking out, it is because the jail it could be a lot better. It is not a place of luxury, but it shouldn't be inhumane. And, that's why we put the anonymous complaint in that language and in the bill, so that if somebody want to send an anonymous complaint of what's happening, they could send it to the board, and then staff over there at the jail wouldn't know exactly why the board would want to come in to be able to clean it up. It would be anonymous. And
Let me ask you a question. So, talking about the anonymous, many of these people are represented by public defenders or private attorneys or not.
and these would be anonymous complaints that could be submitted.
I'm saying the people that are locked up that might want to make complaints, because might be another way to do it is to put it through their attorneys. But I'm just saying, you don't know who's doing it or if they are represented, is what you're saying, right?
And let me be clear, the anonymous complaint will be coming from the staff can submit the anonymous complaints.
Another thing for staff.
Staff can submit anonymous complaints, like you say, not necessarily detainees, because they may have, you get into some gray area, like you say, if they have some litigation going on and now the board is getting involved and you get in the middle of some lawyer and client.
Okay. So I wanted to say, you say you don't agree about the workhouse because you haven't had to work.
I can hear you.
You didn't say, you said you don't know if you necessarily, you probably don't agree about the workhouse. The reason why is because, again, so when I've seen it from when we used to have to sit and wait for hours for people who were in central Missouri, and they have to bring them down. I was the chair when we built the Criminal Justice Center. So I know we had to go through all kind of things because we had to go around Ruth Chris Steakhouse when Harmon was the mayor, and we were building it. It was not built to hold long-term holding, and you're going to continue to have those kind of problems. It's the reason when they build grade schools, they put a playground out there because they let the kids go out and play, and you use up a lot of energy. And so and it's not fair to the people to keep them cooped up like that all the time. So even when we have all of this, sometimes you just make a mistake. You don't know the full ramifications because you haven't had to deal with it. But if you go deal with people who've had to deal, and I dealt with the workhouse. I've been going to the workhouse since 1988. Okay, because I represented criminals there. Whatever the problems were, we were already fixing them up and working with it to try to fix it up. This is not going to be the answer. And maybe this mayor doesn't say it, but some other mayor is going to have to do something. We used to have a jail. Police department had a jail right across the street, and then we had the workhouse. And the workhouse, when I was an attorney, the people would ask to go out of the jail and go to the workhouse because they had so many more programs. They could be outside and those kind of things. So sometimes when you've done something and it's a mistake, you got to really look at it. So when you finish with all of this, you're still going to have the problems, because the problem is the facility. It's like moving 25 people into a 2-bedroom apartment, and it just doesn't work. And you're going to find out sooner or later. And I know people don't like to say that because they pounded the desk for so long, closed the workhouse, but it's not working. And it's not working not for a number of reasons. So again, thank you for your work. I will be asking for a roll call. I will be voting present. And I hope at one point that we do get to a place where we do have an independent investigation, because I think there's a place for people to do independent investigations. And I'm disappointed that we don't have the ability to go into surprise, because surprise is sometimes how you really find out the true things that are going on, because if they know you're coming, you're not going to see whatever. I actually took the first people, when I was chair of public safety in 2001, I took the first tour through the workhouse with the press. Mayor was not happy about it. That was one of the best things. We got a lot of things done. But after that, they kind of start clamping down on it. I think Greg Carter took them in later and so on. But that element of surprise is something that is needed. And so I hope at some point you all get that. And I hope at some point we get to the point where we have an independent commission, that their budget is not controlled and the mayors don't appoint. And my last thing is, I see that you rearranged who would be on certain, like 12 and 13 now are together, 11 and 14. Who does those nominations? That directly from the mayor? Would that be from the alderman? How does that work?
Yeah, so I do agree with you that it would be at some point great to have independent committees. I know other cities, as I talked to the legendary clerk, as you know, I want to dot all my I's and cross my T's about this because I know his involvement was, I know that other cities even do it where they legal counsel isn't through the city of St. Louis. And we've put a lot of, because you get some conflicts, right? If the legal counsel represents the city and represents the jail and also the board. So even in that language, we've made it a lot stronger so that if members on that board want to get input and they're not getting it back from the city council, whatever reason, then they can go and seek outside input from other people who aren't represented from the city. But to your question on how many the board get and the mayor get when it comes to COB and DOB, we didn't change that. That was already in previous ordinance. I'm not sure exactly how many from each get, but I know that the public safety get to a point, I want to say probably just about half, and then the mayor also do the other. And we currently right now have some on some expired terms that from the Board of Aldermen that we're going to have to address here shortly.
And one little final point. The public defender's office has a public defender and they have a conflicts before they go to private attorneys. City councilor at this point could easily set up so that we could have conflicts because the city councilor knows that they represent the mayor, the Board of Aldermen, blah, blah, blah. And a long time ago, and I've suggested on many occasions, we should set the city councilor's office up so that they have a conflicts office so that that person would be somebody separate from the city councilor, and it would be it's an imaginary line, but it's a line nonetheless that would separate so that people would get fair representation. It's not fair that they think that they work only for the mayor because they don't. And a very famous case about that very issue is the mayor's father, Vervis Jones, actually got his own counsel when he got into a big argument with then Mayor Shamel about representation. And I think the board should take a really hard look at the city councilor's office and about trying to get them set up because we can divide them up into conflicts. Thank you very much. I don't have any further inquiries. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your question, Alderwoman.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would the Alderman from the 14th Ward yield for questions?
Alderman from the 14th, will you yield to questions from the Alderwoman from the 11th?
Yes.
Alderman, you may proceed.
So, first of all, thank you so much for your work on this. And I certainly have enjoyed the vigorous conversations that we've had in committee regarding this matter. I'm concerned about training, as we have discussed before. Is there an established public curriculum for training?
So, and I appreciate, thank you for the question. I appreciate your input. I know you serve on public safety. One of your input I actually put in the bill with is the 6 months too long to be able to do that? That's why we pushed it to 4 months. But now there is a curriculum. There are points of what the training is that they have to do to actually be able to do the necessary work. And I know one of your concerns was, what about retaining that training, right? Because it's important after members are trained that they continue to not forget the information, right? You can, 3 days, you may forget it later. So we wanted to, and we didn't want to, we put in the legislation of ongoing training as well. But to your point now, there is curriculum of what is necessary to do in the DFO for the DFOB board, which maybe in the near future when we get to the civilian oversight, because that's dealing with policing, that training may be different. But again, we didn't touch COB because that board is not up. But there is now a curriculum or requirements of trainings that is necessary for people can be skilled up to do their role as detention facility oversight board members.
Thank you. I yield.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 1st.
Thank you so much, Madam President, members of the board. In reviewing this bill and in talking with many different parties about it, it really seems like the bill is a big step forward around clarity of the roles, of training, of the processes. And I really appreciate the work that has gone into it. And I appreciate the movement of folks to really find compromise and find a way to work together to make a better process. And I would also like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I appreciate all my colleagues' conversation today. I also want to thank a lot of people that has, like the Alderwoman from the first said, been able to compromise, meet at the table, from Nicole Barden to Casey Millbrook from the Mayor's administration, from Public Safety Chairman Narayan. I want to thank Clark Hubbard, who actually started the bill, and really, like I told her, she bought the car. I'm just cleaning it off and kind of, cleaning up some language around it. But this has been a Ms. Janika Hayden from the President's office, Alderwoman Tonye, but also John Chesnoff and Mama Jamala Rogers, two individuals that have been working on oversight boards for a very long time now, to be able to get us to a place where legislation was passed last session. And at this point, we're just trying to clean up the legislation to make sure that it is very clear of what the ordinance is supposed to be for, so that our DFOB members don't feel like that the goalpost is being moved and they're actually able to do the oversight. And I appreciate everybody that has been coming to the table to make this legislation possible as far as the cleanup of it. So again, I want to thank everybody on that, especially our clerk as well. And with that, I close.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman or Alderwoman from the 7th, that we perfect Board Bill number 93, floor substitute. There's been a request for roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Valmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Brownie.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer. 13 aye votes and 1 voted present.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 14th to perfect Board Bill number 93, floor substitute.
Board Bill 107, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge and President Green, an ordinance to prohibit the open carrying of firearms in the city of St. Louis. Exceptions are made for law enforcement officers and including an effective date clause depending upon restored authority of the city to regulate firearms.
Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 107.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to perfect Board Bill 107.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we perfect Board Bill number 107. Alderman from the 14th, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to adopt a floor substitute for Bill 107.
You already made the perfection.
Oh, wait, say that again.
Speak on the bill now. You already,
Floor substitute.
substitute. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we adopt floor substitute to Board Bill 107. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Board Bill 107 is a,
Again,
I would like for perfection of floor substitute to Board Bill 107. I'd like to perfect the floor substitute to Board Bill 107.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we perfect Board Bill number 107, floor substitute. Alderman, you may proceed.
I thought you was letting me go on my long rant like I did with the last one before I was supposed to.
Got you before you started talking.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Board Bill 107 is a trigger legislation
that would ban open carry in the city of St. Louis completely. We know that guns is a problem in our community. We continue to see people walking down the street with firearms out with not being kind of concealed. Jefferson City has passed legislation that have made Missouri one of the most lax gun law state that there is in the United States. So what this piece of legislation is doing is being kind of proactive, knowing that with elections coming up, there's a potential that language could be on the ballot that allow municipalities to make decisions around firearms and make decisions around guns in their own municipalities. So what we're doing is this would, like I say, be trigger legislation. We're saying we would ban open carry completely in the city of St. Louis. The floor substitute that I brought forward in public safety, there was a conversation brought up in Section 2. We talk about the penalties in violation. We struck out line B because we understand when it comes to juveniles and people under the age of 18, the state of Missouri makes it very clear that we kind of don't have the authority to do anything around that, as well as we put in on Section 1, line B, even though it already made very clear that firearms won't be allowed on public street right away. One of the comments that came from the chairman of public safety, just to be ensured that we're not infringing on people's rights, is people will still be able to have their firearm on their private property, as well as added a severability emergency clause on it. But again, this is just, I would say, one of many trigger pieces of legislation that will be coming in front of this board for us to be proactive, understanding that there's an opportunity for us in the city of St. Louis to be able to vote to allow municipalities like the city of St. Louis to take these actions. So we're getting above the curve. I know we already took a huge step with Alderwoman Spencer passage of the concealed carry, her finding that loophole in that piece of legislation for us to try to make it a little harder for people to actually open carry. And appreciate her legislation and appreciate her leadership on this. And what we're doing is we're also trying to be proactive and allow and send a message not just to Jefferson City, but the people of the city of St. Louis that we are sick and tired of these guns just flooding our streets, killing our family members. And if legislation does, or if a ballot initiative does come down the pipeline, that this Board of Aldermen is ready to act on day one. And with that, Madam President, I close.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 11th.
Would the Alderman from the 14th yield for questions, please?
Would the Alderman from the 14th yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 11th?
Okay.
Yes.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
I want my seat moved next time.
Objection.
So, Alderman, and then I want to thank Alderwoman Spencer. I'm having a problem getting all these numbers together. So, Alderwoman Spencer, thank you so much for the initial legislation on this, and thank you so much to the Alderman of the 14th. I can remember they always set me next to him. And so, but the question that I have, because I heard you say, and it's in the legislation, that you may have your firearm in your personal property, but for the kids at home, this does not mean that you're not permitted to carry your weapon concealed on your person. Is that correct?
Correct. Under the previous legislation we passed, we made it very clear that only way that you can open carry if you had it concealed. This would be saying that we would ban open carry completely.
Thank you so much. With that, I yield.
Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you. I share the concern here about the open carry of weapons in our city, and are just tired of Jefferson City telling us what is right to do on our streets. So I thank you for bringing this forward, and look forward to the day that we can govern our own streets with regards to firearms. With that, I would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
I'd
Alderwoman
like
from
to
the
be
11th.
added as a co-sponsor as well.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I close.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we perfect Board Bill number 107, floor substitute.
Second from the Alderman from the 11th.
Oh, it was the 11th? Sorry.
You could be mad at.
I had 7th written down from earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear the right voice. Right. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th. Yes, I'm hearing voices, Alderman. That we perfect Board Bill number 107, floor substitute. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report of engrossment.
We have none.
Third reading and final passage of board bills consent.
We have none.
Third read and final passage of board bills.
We have none.
Report of finally passed and signed by the president.
We have none.
We can dispense with line items 17 through 19. First reading of resolutions in reference to committee.
Resolution 149, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, supporting a fair election process of workers seeking to organize with SEIU Healthcare Missouri at Places for People.
Alderwoman from the 8th, you are recognized on the first reading of resolution 149.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I request unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a resolution supporting the workers over at Places for People, which is a nonprofit that really does an enormous amount of work serving our community, particularly those unhoused and those with mental health and other substance disorders, this support staff at Places for People really does tireless work helping these folks. And they are looking to organize with SEIU. And this resolution really just calls for some solidarity with the folks that are looking to have those conversations with leadership at Places for People and standing in solidarity with those conversations. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to thank Alderwoman from the 8th for bringing this piece of legislation forward. I think this board has made it very clear we are supportive of organized labor. And anytime that we can take a stance on ensuring that we support workers, I think it's always a good day at the board. And I'd like to make a motion to move this resolution in bank.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 10th, that we make this resolution bank. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 14th, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. With that, thank my members for embanking this resolution, and I close.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 8th, would you like to make a motion to adopt resolution for 149?
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th. When my back is to you, I'm not always sure whose voice it is who. That we adopt resolution number 149. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 154, sponsored by Alderwoman Velazquez, approving the 2024 Tower Grove Concerned Citizen Special Business District budget.
Alderwoman from the 6th, you're recognized on the first reading of Resolution 154.
Thank you. This bill is just basic. This resolution just outlining the budget for.
You need to request unanimous
Sorry,
consent.
can I move? I move for unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you. This resolution is outlining the proposed budget from the Tower Grove Concerned Citizen
Special Business District. We had a meeting a few weeks ago on reimagining public safety for this SBD, so this budget is a follow-up after that meeting. And obviously to fit in with the ordinance requirements to post the budget.
Would you like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 154?
Yes, I move to adopt Resolution 154.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we adopt Resolution number 154. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of first reading of resolutions in reference to committee.
Courtesy resolutions. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adopt the courtesy resolution calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
Second. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Tuesday, November 14th, HUS will have a committee hearing in the Kennedy Room at 11 a.m. Wednesday, November 15th, Budget and Public Employees will have a committee hearing in the Kennedy Room at 9:30 a.m. Thursday, November 16th, Health and Human Development will have a committee hearing in the Kennedy Room at 9 a.m. Personnel will have a webinar at 11 a.m. Friday, November 17th, 2023, full board meeting in the Kennedy Room at 10 a.m. That's the extent of the announcements.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 13th.
I wanted to announce our previous financial advisor that we had, Gerald Hollins. He lost his father, and they will have the service at Wade's Funeral Home on November the 14th at 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. Today in Dutchtown, this evening, there's the business after hours, which is taking place at Creative Expressions, which is right near the intersection of Virginia and Merrimack, just south of Merrimack. And then also this weekend is the Safer Dutchtown Summit, which is taking place at the NIC on November 11th.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you so much, Madam President. A couple of things. First of all, the former Alderwoman of the 21st Ward, Benice Jones King, and her husband, Ronald D. King, have lost their second son. And so Resolution 153, if we are able to have the clerk read that into record, and then I would like a moment of silence for their loss.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Resolution 153, honoring the life of the kings. Whereas to Bernice Jones King and Ronald D. King was born Fortune McGee King, born on July 14, 1988, and Justice D. King, July 13, 1994. Whereas Bernice Jones King, formerly Alderwoman of the 21st Ward of the City of St. Louis, served for 16 years faithfully. Ronald D. King worked for the Missouri Highway Patrol for 30 years. Both parents served as civil servants for the City of St. Louis and the state of Missouri. Whereas the King boys were raised to love life and live life to the fullest. Being a king came with its challenges, both good and bad, but never with regret. Civil servants as parents raised them to take on the challenge. With this instilled in the fibers of their being, this task was done with fury and zeal. Whereas Fortune loved numbers and sports, Justice loved building and sports. Both used their talents to bring success to all they were a part of, competitive in everything they did while leaving defeat as no option. Whereas Fortune and Justice loved their family and friends, whereas Fortune was the richest of life, Justice brought balance to the injustice of our lives. These two were a duo to be reckoned with. You were never poor or mistreated with these two in your life. Whereas Fortune departed this earth in 2017, Justice's departed was in 2023. Though they were 1 day apart in birthdays, 6 years apart in birth, and 6 years in death, life was full of love and every day, second, minute, and hour. Whereas God blessed our lives with fortune and justice, God knew the plan and we had to follow the design. Our lives will forever be blessed, having them to be part of priceless, precious memories. God called his soldiers to become lion angels. They were prepared to fight this war against evil. And whereas the celebration of life for justice will be held on Saturday, November the 11th, 2023, which is on Veterans Day, fit for soldiers at Ronald Jones Funeral Home, 2161 Fair Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, 63115. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by this Honorable Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberation to recognize the life and passing of Justice D. King, express our condolences to the family by adoption of this resolution, wish to join all those celebrating in his life. We further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of the proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced this 9th day of November, 2023 by the Honorable Laura Keys, 11th Ward Alderwoman.
Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you so much again, Madam President. This loss, most of us cannot imagine losing one of our children, but the Kings have lost both of their children. The weight of that loss is just unimaginable for anybody who has had a child. The King family have played such a pivotal role in the 21st and still in the new 11th Ward. Their support has just been tremendous. And even as they go through this tremendous loss, they are still able to move about in such a way that brings such pride and dignity to their family as well as to our community. Thank God we don't look like what we've been through. And so I'd ask that this be embanked and that we have moment of silence.
Unfortunately, we're past that part.
Oh, we're past that? I'm so sorry.
So we can't do that.
That's okay. It was read record, and that's what is important. But we truly feel their loss. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to say I thank the Alderwoman for bringing this forward, but making sure that this resolution was read at least into the record. I've had the opportunity to get to know that she hasn't just been amazing in the 21st Ward or the new 11th Ward. She used to be at a school over in the old 5th Ward, Jimmy Edwards Old School. And over the last few years, been able to really get to know Ms. King. She's so sweet. She's very helpful. She's very community driven and just one of those gems of individuals that we have in the city of St. Louis. And I want to publicly be on record to send my well wishes to her and her family as they continue to grieve at the moment of, like you say, not losing one, but two is just tragic. And again, thank you, Alderwoman, for making sure this is on the record.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 7th, and then the Alderman from the...
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I may be breaking the rules a little bit, but I just wanted to let Alderwoman Keys know that I I totally agree with you, and I'm going to send an email to request to be added as co-sponsor since you weren't able to in-bank.
Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President. The Public Safety Committee will hold a meeting Thursday at 2 p.m. here in the Kennedy Room to take up Board Bill number 95. And then I just wanted to take a second to wish all the veterans out there a happy Veterans Day. That'll be on Saturday. So thank you.
Alderman from the 9th.
Just reminding everybody that this Sunday, November 12th, every entrance into Forest Park will be closed between 6:45 a.m. and 10 a.m. for the St. Louis Half Marathon. So if you're planning on going to Forest Park, beware.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 1st.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to announce a Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting on Wednesday, November 15th at 3:30 p.m. here in the Kennedy Room. And also in Carondelet Park this weekend at 9 a.m. on Saturday, we'll be doing an invasive plant removal. This is our, I think, 5th or 6th one. We're clearing honeysuckle from the park. So join us at Carondelet Park, 9 a.m. in front of the Lyle House.
Alderwoman for 6th.
Just want to let folks know that State Rep Lakeisha Bosley is hosting 2 town halls this weekend. One is in the 6th Ward. So join me at Tower Grove Church from 1:15 to 3 p.m. That's at 4257 Magnolia Avenue. I'll be there. She'll have some announcements. So thank you.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 12th.
If you wait long enough for something, it really will. For the 32 years I've been here, we've been asking for a basketball court in Forest Park. We had a president come to this city, President Obama, and had to play basketball at a private place near Forest Park because we have refused to put up basketball court. We have every kind of other sport in the city. And for years, myself and other members of the caucus had requested basketball in Forest Park. And the other day, they broke ground, and that's a wonderful thing. And congratulations to Forest Park and to the people who sit on the Forest Park Advisory Committee. And it's about time, and I congratulate everybody that was involved in it. It's been a 31-year fight, and it has been well worth it. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you again. So the 8th annual Natural Hair and Black Cultural Expo will happen on Saturday, the 11th. This year, it's going to be held. I'm looking for the location here on the flyer. So it's going to be held at Better Family Life at 5415 Page. This is a wonderful event that annually they hold with lots of good information and products and resources. So please bring the family out to that. Then on a lighter note, the Reggae Night will be held at 5249 Delmar on Saturday. This event will take place from, these flyers have stuff all over them. I'm going to say 7 p.m. So please get your tickets and get to those wonderful reggae performances at Reggae Nights. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the 14th.
Well, we always think we getting out. Take long. I just want to say thank you to the Urban League, the Regional Business Council, some labor unions. Last weekend we did a cleanup build up over in the High Park / College Hill area where we're installing a new, it's going to be called Peace Park on Grand around the water tower. College Hill is probably the only neighborhood, from what I'm hearing, that does not have a park. So it was a beautiful event. We was able to also install over 100 floodlights that will be on people's front porch
to try to deter crime and light up their block, as well as did a lot of cleaning up in the neighborhood, knocking down structures that needed to be gone, and then, like I say, installing Peace Park in the community. So I want to, again, thank you to the Urban League, Mike McMillan, James Clark, and all the individuals that made that event be so successful. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I wanted to announce, I know that Thanksgiving is coming up, and there's a lot of families that are in need and need resources. The ARJ Community Outreach Center is having a giveaway, 1 turkey per car. So I just wanted to flag that for some folks. It'll be drive-through style, so you'll just pull up and then they'll get the turkey there. Given that I'm not in a committee hearing, I will be there as well, volunteering. And then also anybody who's watching and maybe, I know this is that time of year where especially those of us who don't have as many resources are looking to get connected. I've tried to respond to all the outreach I get, but if you ever have any questions, I'm always happy to send via email and try to share on my social media about resources, because I know there's a lot of things in the city. And so just making sure that folks in the public know where they can go to get those resources. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 11th.
I promise you this is the last thing. So this past Tuesday, there was a town hall held at Herbert Hoover's Boys and Girls Club, sponsored by our mayor. And I wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you to her and all of the services and resources, and including Spire that came to that meeting. But especially I want to, and I'm sorry he walked out the room, Kevin Bailey worked so hard on this thing. He was in constant communication with me as we went through the process of making sure that things were in place and inviting all of the residents of the 11th Ward. By the time I arrived at the venue on Tuesdays, Kevin was sweating already. And so that surely is a sign that hard work is occurring. And so, Kevin, wherever you are, thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to more meetings like that.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. All members were present this morning.
Congratulations. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We adjourn. I move that we adjourn until Friday, November 17th, 2023 at City Hall in the Kennedy Room.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adjourn until Friday, November 17th, 2023 in the Kennedy hearing room. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. We are adjourned.